Hello and welcome back to my vlog. Here we are with part 2, Ourselves in the Divine Offering, which is chapter 11, the final chapter of The Creative Process in the Individual by Troward. Yesterday he talked about love and fear, which I've thought for a long time were the two motivating forces in the universe, and I like the way he went into it. So let's see what he's got now. This truly new thought puts us in an entirely new relation to the whole of our environment, opening out possibilities hitherto undreamt of, and this by an orderly sequence of law which is naturally involved in our new mental attitude. But before considering the prospect thus offered, it is well to be quite clear as to what this new mental attitude really is. For it is our adoption of this attitude that is the key to the whole position. Put briefly, it is ceasing to include the idea of limitations in our conception of the working of the all-creating Spirit. Here are some specimens of the way in which we limit the creative working of the Spirit. We say, I am too old now to start this or that new sort of work. This is to deny the power of the Spirit to vivify our physical or mental faculties, which is illogical if we consider that it is the same Spirit that brought us into any existence at all. It is like saying that when a lamp is beginning to burn low, the same person who first filled it with oil cannot replenish it and make it burn brightly again. Or we say, I cannot do so and so because I have not the means. When you were 14, did you know where all the means were coming from which were going to support you till now, when you are perhaps 40 or 50? So you should argue that the same power that has worked in the past can continue to work in the future. If you say the means came in the past quite naturally through ordinary channels, that is no objection. On the contrary, the more reason for saying that suitable channels will open in the future. Do you expect God to put cash into your desk by a conjuring trick? Means come through recognizable channels. That is to say, we recognize the channels by the fact of the stream flowing through them. And one of our most common mistakes is in thinking that we ourselves have to fix the particular channel beforehand. We say in effect that the Spirit cannot open other channels, and so we stop them up. Or we say our past experience speaks to the contrary, thus assuming that our past experiences have included all possibilities and have exhausted the laws of the universe. An assumption which is negatived by every fresh discovery, even in physical science. And so we go on limiting the power of the Spirit in 100 different ways. But careful consideration will show that, through the modes in which we limit it, let me restart that. But careful consideration will show that, though the modes in which we limit it are as numerous as the circumstances with which we have to deal, the thing with which we limit it is always the same. It is by the introduction of our own personality. This may appear at first a direct contradiction of all that I have said about the necessity for the personal factor, but it is not. Here is a paradox. To open out into manifestation the wonderful possibilities hidden in the creative power of the universe, we require to do two things. To see that we ourselves are necessary as centers for focusing that power, and at the same time to withdraw the thought of ourselves as contributing anything to its efficiency. It is not that I work, but the power. Yet the power needs me because it cannot specialize itself without me. In a word, each is the complementary of the other, and the higher the degree of specialization is to be, the more necessary is the intelligent and willing cooperation of the individual. This is the scriptural paradox that the Son can do nothing of himself, and yet we are told to be fellow workers with God. It ceases to be a paradox, however, when we realize the relation between the two factors concerned, God and man. Our mistake is in not discriminating between their respective functions and putting man in the place of God. In our everyday life, we do this by measuring the power of God by our past experience and the deductions we draw from them. But there is another way of putting man in the place of God, and that is by the misconception that the all-originating spirit is merely a cosmic force without intelligence, and that man has to originate the intelligence without which no specific purpose can be conceived. This latter is the error of much of the present-day philosophy and has to be specially guarded against. This was perceived by some of the medieval students of these things, and they accordingly distinguished between what they called animus Dei and anima mundi, the divine spirit and the soul of the universe. Now the distinction is this, that the essential quality of animus Dei is personality, not a person, but the very principle of personality itself, while the essential quality of anima mundi is impersonality. Then right here comes in that importance of the personal factor of which I have already spoken. The powers latent in the impersonal are brought out to their fullest development by the operation of the personal. This, of course, does not consist in changing the nature of those powers, for that is impossible, but in making such combinations of them by personal selection as to produce results which could not otherwise be obtained. Thus, for example, number is in itself impersonal, and no one can alter the laws which are inherent in it. But what we can do is to select particular numbers, and by the sort of relation, such as subtraction, multiplication, etc., which we will establish between them, and then by the inherent law of number, a certain result is bound to work out. Now, our own essential quality is the consciousness of personality, and as we grow into the recognition of the fact that the impersonal is, as it were, crying out for the operation upon it of the personal in order to bring its latent powers into working, we shall see how limitless is the field that thus opens before us. The prospect is wonderful beyond our present conception and full of increasing glory if we realize the true foundation on which it rests. But herein lies the danger. It consists in not realizing that the infinite of the impersonal is, and also that the infinite of the personal is. Both are infinite, and so require differentiation through our own personality. But in their essential quality, each is the exact balance of the other, not in contradiction to each other, but as complementary to one another, each supplying what the other needs for its full expression, so that the two together make a perfect whole. If, however, we see this relation and our own position as the connecting link between them, we shall see only ourselves as the personal factor. But the more we realize, both by theory and experience, the power of human personality brought into contact with the impersonal soul of nature, and employed with a knowledge of its power and a corresponding exercise of the will, the less we shall be inclined to regard ourselves as the supreme factor in the chain of cause and effect. Consideration of this argument points to the danger of much of the present-day teaching regarding the exercise of thought power as a creative agency. The principle on which this teaching is based is sound and legitimate, for it is inherent in the nature of things. But the error is in supposing that we ourselves are the ultimate source of personality, instead of merely the distributors and specializers of it. The logical result of such a mental attitude is that putting ourselves in the place of all that is worshipped as God, which is spoken of in the 2nd chapter of the 2nd epistle to the Thessalonians and other parts of Scripture, by the very hypothesis of the case, we then know no higher will than our own, and so are without any unifying principle to prevent the conflict of wills which must then arise. A conflict which must become more and more destructive the greater the power possessed by the contending parties, and which, if there were no counterbalancing power, must result in the ultimate destruction of the existing race of men. That's where I'm stopping for today. I guess we'll find out tomorrow, maybe, how not to destroy the race of men. That's my goal. I want to not destroy the race of men. So, make it a great day, and bye for now.